Alright. Hi again. Let's do another reaction. Guys, did a reaction a couple minutes ago. It was... What if Obi-Wan left the Jedi Order? And find it on here. Where is it? There it is. I just did a reaction to that a couple minutes ago. From the same channel. Now I'm reacting to this one. What if Obi-Wan saved Anakin on Musterfar? And again, can't be in the description below. And yeah, it's not uploading, but I'll make a bunch of reaction videos and then upload a bunch of those at the same time. But in the meantime, let's get this reaction video started. Channel be in the description below as always. In order to subscribe, like, and share. And let's get started.
What if Obi-Wan Kenobi went back to save Anakin Skywalker on Musterfar after cutting him down? That's our story for today. I do think I went down a different path than anyone before. I'll admit, haven't listened to everyone's, but I hope I did. Hope you guys enjoy this video. And let's get right into it.
That's why I'm here.
Our story begins on Musterfar, as Obi-Wan Kenobi is stumbling through the platforms, heading back to Padme's ship. As he ran, he was not seeing the ground in front of him. He wasn't hearing the machines around him. No, Obi-Wan was only seeing the eyes of his brother and the screams of hatred from what he had become. Anakin, turned Vader, was lying on the lava flats behind him, burning, and Obi-Wan was leaving him. As Obi-Wan saw Padme's ship and saw that C-3PO loaded Padme on board already, he stopped and closed his eyes. In Kenobi's mind, there was only one choice. He'd forced himself to let go as Anakin leapt into the air, to let go of everything he loved about Anakin. But as Kenobi stood here, he remembered who he was and what he did stand for. He was still Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Council Master, and he couldn't just leave a helpless man to suffer and die when he can still be saved. Obi-Wan cursed everything, the Republic, the Jedi, Qui-Gon, Anakin, all of it. This was a situation he wouldn't wish upon anyone, and Obi-Wan made a decision, swiftly turning back to the lava where Anakin was laying. He began to run back, hoping he was not too late, and for the first time in days he felt a bit of light in the Force, as if he were doing the right thing. Obi-Wan turned the corner and he saw him, Anakin, using his prosthetic right hand to climb very slowly up the rocks. It broke Kenobi's heart to see Anakin like this, but he tried to push away all of the emotions, and he slid down the rocks, coming to Anakin's side. Anakin looked up at Obi-Wan, and his yellow eyes burned into Kenobi like the lava burned into Anakin. He was completely unrecognizable, only holding on to life through the dark side, but not for long. Obi-Wan reached his hand out, placing it on Anakin's forehead. It burned his hand, but Obi-Wan kept it there, and he performed a risky move in the Force. He began to pour his own life energy into Anakin, a process that, if done for too long, could severely injure or kill Obi-Wan. But he gave Anakin just enough energy to hear his breathing begin to return to somewhat normal, and Obi-Wan decided that was enough for now, at least enough to keep him alive until he was ready to be repaired. Obi-Wan picked up Anakin, feeling much weaker now, and he began carrying Anakin back to the ship. But, unfortunately, Obi-Wan looked to the sky and he saw a new ship appear, the Emperor's ship. There was still a long distance between him and the landing pad to get to Padme. Kenobi's options were extremely slim. He didn't have time to get to the ship before Sidious arrived, so Obi-Wan made a choice. He put Anakin down safely, away from it all, hidden from sight, and he moved towards the landing pad. He would have to kill Darth Sidious. And as Sidious's shuttle landed, he descended the ramp to see Padme's ship, but no one was around. And from across the landing pad, he suddenly saw Obi-Wan Kenobi, carrying a look of determination on his face. Obi-Wan ignited his blue lightsaber, telling Sidious that his rule ends here. Sidious cackled, saying that Yoda said the same thing, yet here he stood, and he shot lightning out at Kenobi. Obi-Wan deflected it away, running at the Sith Lord, who dodged a strike and pushed the Jedi away. Sidious asked Obi-Wan if he killed Anakin, and Obi-Wan nodded, saying that he did what he must. Sidious scowled angrily, saying now that Anakin was a failure, saying that the Chosen One was a joke. blasting more lightning at Obi-Wan as the Coruscant guards shot at him now. This time, Obi-Wan's saber was thrown from his hands, and he was hit by the lightning. Sidious began yelling that the Jedi failed, that Anakin failed, but he would always prevail. Obi-Wan was much, much weaker than he would have otherwise been had he not given Anakin some of his life force. And now Sidious lifted Obi-Wan up, using his own saber, to cut off both of his arms at the elbow. As Obi-Wan yelled in pain, Sidious said that because of Anakin's failure, he would be replaced by his own children, and the Skywalker legacy will become one of darkness. With another evil laugh, Sidious blasted Obi-Wan over the landing pad, sending him flying into the lava. Sidious watched him fall, then boarded Padme's ship, taking Padme with him and leaving Musterfar. But Obi-Wan was not dead, though he should have been. He was suspended above the lava, the heat of it burning through his robes and into his skin. But he had not fallen in. Anakin, who was placed on a nearby platform, was using his strength from Obi-Wan to keep him alive. Anakin was able to hear everything that Sidious said, that he was a failure, and that he was taking Padme and the children to replace him. And Anakin saw the treachery of the Sith. Palpatine never cared for Padme, only about his power. Anakin knew it was time to try and go back, and to do that, he would need his brother. He needed to save Padme, if it was the last thing he did. He could not let her just be a tool for Palpatine. His children were becoming nothing but Darksiders. He couldn't let this happen. He must save them. And now as Obi-Wan burned, his arms were cut off, and Anakin slowly used the Force to bring Obi-Wan to his side, dropping him to the ground. And here, now, lay master and apprentice, Anakin and Obi-Wan, burned and maimed, with no hopes of survival. But on Polis Massa, Grandmaster Yoda was in deep meditation. Kenobi had not returned. The Skywalker children were missing. Yoda needed a glimmer of hope, and the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn came to Yoda. Qui-Gon said that Anakin is now ready to become the Chosen One, and that he and Obi-Wan are together on Mustafar. So Yoda and Bail took the tent of 4 to save them. Yoda would go to Mustafar with all the medical supplies that Bail could gather, and they would find Anakin and Obi-Wan both unconscious, both severely burned,
I'll be back in a
missing
minute.
limbs.
I'll be back in a minute. Hope you enjoyed this reaction. And I'll be back in a minute. Before reactions. And I'm back. How do we put my water bottle? But I'm back to continue this reaction.
And they would be loaded onto the ship as Yoda took off for perhaps the only Jedi facility that Palpatine would be unaware of, the Jedi outpost on Tempest, built during the High Republic in the Outer Rim. Once Yoda arrived with Anakin and Obi-Wan, he waited for a bit until Bail Organa arrived as well, and on his ship he had a lot more medical supplies. Inside the outpost, there was a shut-down medical facility, and so Yoda worked to get it back up and running within a couple hours. And then, from there, Anakin and Obi-Wan were on tables near each other, as surgery droids began a process of repairing them as best they could. When it came to Obi-Wan, the droids found that he had severe third-degree burns across his entire torso, and of course he no longer had arms, so a mobile suit of armor was designed. Obi-Wan would go through hours upon hours of surgery, going in and out of consciousness, but ultimately, he would survive in an armored suit. For Anakin, his injuries were so much worse. He was missing both legs and an arm, but luckily, Kenobi had given him enough life force to be able to breathe mostly on his own. Even so, a suit was designed that would cover Anakin from head to toe. A suit designed kind of to look like a clone trooper in a way. The surgeries were extremely long and painful for both Anakin and Obi-Wan, but after 24 hours, they began to truly wake up. Yoda stood in front of both tables as they rose, and Anakin spoke first. His new voice was robotic, coming from the new helmet, and he asked if anyone found Padme. Yoda said that her whereabouts were unknown, just like theirs are. And Anakin, between deep breaths, said that she is alive. He can feel her in the Force. Anger still boiled inside of him, anger towards Sidious for turning him into a monster. Obi-Wan didn't wear a helmet, and he said that they will get her and the children back. Anakin began to break through his restraints though, and he screamed that if Obi-Wan never got in the way, then he would have killed Palpatine. He would have Padme. Obi-Wan yelled back that Anakin nearly killed her in his rage. He lost Padme long before Palpatine took him. Yoda didn't interfere, as the two of them soon began to calm down. Anakin was beginning to see the reality of the situation. He was taken advantage of by the Sith, thrown away like trash. He would have to work with Obi-Wan to get her back. Yoda looked to the two of them, saying that the Force brought them together years ago, and now the Force has kept them together and kept them alive, despite everything. And now Yoda said he was trusting in the will of the Force to keep them together, and for them to do what is necessary. He turned, beginning to leave, as Obi-Wan asked where he was going. Yoda turned, saying this journey is for the two of them alone, and into exile he must go. And Yoda disappeared, leaving Anakin and Obi-Wan alone, together. The two of them would spend the day trying to talk with each other and get used to their new suits. There were a couple of times that Anakin was tempted to fly away, go rescue Padme, but he could barely walk, much less fight anyone in this suit. Obi-Wan stayed patient, and eventually the two of them understood what they must do. They would have to start training with each other again, learn to move, to fight, to win, and when they are ready physically and mentally, then they can go and take out the Emperor. So for the next month, the two of them would learn to move in their suits, using the training grounds inside of this hidden outpost to practice agility drills with each other. There was a lot of issues for them to work through, as they were trying to kill each other not long ago, but eventually they were able to talk with each other again. Obi-Wan could never forgive Anakin for what he did in the temple.
How ironic, yeah, like literally. 4 months ago we tried to kill each other. Let's work together now, okay, yeah. Nice.
But he could see that it was the Sith that took over his mind, manipulating him for decades, and Obi-Wan was unable to stop it. They were both at fault, and after a month, when the two of them could move like themselves again, sparks of the old friendship were returning. And so, for the next year after this, as their relationship returned, they began training once more in lightsaber combat and with the Force. They were left alone here, without contact to the outside world, with nothing except a mission and each other. And after a few months, as they dueled with their old lightsabers, Obi-Wan joked that Anakin was like if Grievous had cough medication, and he heard Anakin laugh for the first time. It was a great feeling, and they continued training, developing their powers and their old friendship. After 6 months, they were using old training modules inside of this outpost that would mimic droids and other lightsaber fighters. They were training back to back, perfectly defending, working with each other, reminiscent of the Clone Wars. During all of this, Emperor Palpatine became disturbed, as he could feel a disturbance in the Force. He knew it was Anakin, but he didn't know how or where. But he knew one thing for certain. In time, Anakin would be coming to get Padme. So inside of the Imperial Palace, formerly the Jedi Temple, Palpatine had cloning experiments built along with a prison, so he could keep Padme and the children here. And he heavily increased security at the temple, so when Skywalker returns, he will not get far inside. And on Tempest, in the outpost, Anakin and Obi-Wan trained and trained day in and day out, learning again how to fight with each other, not against each other.
Yeah.
Despite everything, the two of them were tied together through the Force, and they accepted this, becoming stronger with each other, and after the year, they were ready to go to Coruscant and fight Sidious. As they decided they were ready, the temple began to shake, and a secret door began to open. This was strange, but the two of them walked in together, and everything around them began to shift, until the only thing they could see were stars. As they looked around, the voice of Yoda spoke, followed by the voice of Qui-Gon, and then their bodies appeared. Yoda was still alive, but he was finding them through the Force. Because they were at a secret Jedi outpost, Yoda was using the strong connection to the Force on Dagobah to reach them. And the ghost of Qui-Gon was here as well. Yoda said that they have followed the will of the Force, and Qui-Gon said that perhaps together, they are the chosen ones. Master and apprentice, Skywalker and Kenobi, together. And so the two of them said goodbye to the Masters, leaving the outpost together. On Coruscant, Darth Sidious was meeting with a group of senators, and suddenly he grabbed at his head. Another disturbance in the Force, this time much closer, and Sidious realized that Skywalker was coming. He told the senators to get out, and he ordered for Padme and the children to be brought to him. Amongst this group of senators was Bail Organa, and he realized something may be going on, so he called to the Tantive 4 to be ready to fly, as they may soon be needed. Sidious ordered that the entire palace be locked down immediately, but discreetly, and so it was. And soon enough, Anakin and Obi-Wan, they landed at the entrance and moved to the door. They were not hiding. They were here to take down the Emperor, and no one would stop them from doing so. At the entrance, around 100 stormtroopers were waiting, and they began firing at them. Skywalker and Kenobi ignited their sabers, leaping into the air, moving through the lines of troopers. They got back to back, and they began deflecting countless shots, using the Force, and within minutes, the entrance was cleared, and they began to move in. Once in the main area, 20 clone commandos began flying in on jetpacks, firing missiles, using their blasters to shoot at the Jedi. Again, Anakin and Obi-Wan were ready, and they caught the missiles, firing them back, jumping into the air to take on the commandos. They were much more of a challenge, but the Jedi jumped from pillars, taking them out, along with other clone reinforcements that were entering. After an hour or so of fighting their way through the palace, the two of them entered the hall to the Emperor's office, where 6 red blades ignited around them. The Grand Inquisitor and 5 other Inquisitors were here, waiting, and they told Skywalker and Kenobi they made a great mistake coming here. Anakin said he doubts that very much, and so the two of them ran at the Inquisitors. Anakin surged forward, with a whirlwind of strikes, his saber moving with power that shocked the Inquisitors. Beside him, Obi-Wan's focus remained strong, his connection to the Force guiding his every move. In a display of moves together, Anakin and Obi-Wan struck as one, exploiting a momentary opening in the defenses. They unleashed a barrage of devastating strikes, overwhelming the Inquisitors one by one, and the Inquisitors fell before the unstoppable onslaught of Anakin and Obi-Wan, their red blades extinguished, as they were outmaneuvered and outmatched by their combined might of the Jedi. In the end, only silence remained in the halls of the Imperial Palace, as they looked to the door where Palpatine was. So together, they moved in, jamming their sabers into the extremely fortified blast door, melting it away. Darth Sidious waited, rather amused and impressed that somehow, of course, Skywalker and Kenobi survived. Kenobi was the thorn in his side for years, keeping Anakin away from him, and Anakin was back with him. It was poetic, really, but Sidious planned to end this nonsense today. The two of them entered, and Sidious smiled, welcoming them. Anakin moved in and gasped, as next to Sidious, on her knees in handcuffs, was Padme Amidala, and a small hovering cradle of sorts had 2 babies next to her. Sidious welcomed them, saying that once he discards of the two of them, he will kill Padme, and then raise the children as the first of the next generation of Sith. Without hesitation, Anakin and Obi-Wan reignited their sabers, casting a glow across the chamber, as they prepared to face their ultimate enemy. The Emperor's lips curled into a twisted smile, as he unleashed a barrage of lightning, the crackling tendrils lashing out towards the Jedi with deadly intent. Anakin and Obi-Wan moved in unison, their lightsabers a blur of motion as they deflected the lightning. And unaffected by this, the Emperor pulled out his own dual red sabers. Anakin and Obi-Wan now fought with all the skill and determination that they possessed, their blades flashing with intensity, as they pushed back against the powers of Sidious. But the Emperor was relentless, his mastery of the dark side unparalleled. With a flick of his wrist, he soon was able to send Anakin flying across the office. Sidious then turned to Obi-Wan, hitting him with lightning as he fell near Anakin. But they regrouped, looking out the window to see Bail Organa's ship, the Tantive 4, approaching in the distance. With a silent nod and a new escape route, they renewed their assault, their lightsabers flashing with renewed power as they pressed the attack against the Emperor with all the strength and skill they could muster. In a final desperate move, the Emperor lost both sabers. He couldn't believe it, but he unleashed a pure wave of darkside energy in a power called Force Blast. It was his last resort. The sheer power of his attack threatened to kill them all, but Anakin pushed in, stabbing Sidious through the heart as he unleashed this violent attack. The Dark Lord gasped, then smiled, which sent a chill through Anakin, as he said that if he died, then they will all die. Insidious unleashed all of the power inside of him into this force blast. He was disintegrated, but he sent an explosion through the room. It didn't hit Padme or the children though, as Anakin and Obi-Wan now stood next to them, using all of their power to keep the explosion away. Anakin looked to Obi-Wan, telling him they can still save Padme and the children, together. Obi-Wan nodded with a soft smile, telling Anakin the Force is with them. And so, as Obi-Wan held the explosion at bay, Anakin let go of it, using the Force to guide Padme and the children out of the window and into Bail Organa's open hangar. Padme looked back at Anakin, smiling warmly, and Anakin was at peace. The Imperial Palace shook under the explosion and began crumbling to the ground, and the explosion consumed Anakin and Obi-Wan as it collapsed, perhaps signaling the end of the Empire, as the Jedi died, sacrificing themselves for the future. A few months later, the Empire was taken down from the inside, with everyone competing for power. A clone rebellion combined with citizens rising up after Palpatine's death would end the Empire quickly, and Padme Amidala would take over as the new Chancellor. For years, she would rule the New Republic, and her children would train as Jedi. They would not have a living master. Instead, they would be guided by Anakin and Obi-Wan as Force ghosts. The two of them were granted eternal life after their sacrifice, and together, they guided the children for decades as they started the new Jedi Order. And folks, that is where our story ends. I really wanted to do something different with this. I don't think I've kind of done a What If Anakin Was Saved on Mustafar. It was much different than this, but I wanted to, there's the path I could take, which is Obi-Wan just bringing Anakin to, Polis Massa, and eventually Anakin just joining the fight to take down the Emperor. But I wanted to do something a little different, where Obi-Wan goes back to save him, Palpatine arrives, and they both end up burning, getting suits together, just kind of parallel their lives, make it seem like they're stuck together, like they just can't get away from each other. Skywalker and Kenobi. And yeah, they died together as well. So let me know what you thought of this. I really enjoyed it. Hope you did as well. And then the two of them training Luke and Leia after death. Yeah, I think it's one of my more fun stories, so let me know if you agree. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Yep. And that's the end of that video, and yeah. Like I said at the beginning of the other video, check out in the description below if you want to check out the original video for yourself as well. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And don't forget to share the channel friends and family too. And see you next time for another reaction. Bye for now. And have a nice time.